didn't put that.
I recognize this couch. You've had this couch for a long time.
I've had this couch since I moved here to Arizona.
Wow.
And that was, what was it? Many years ago.
Yeah.
And you know, it doesn't sink or anything, so I still like it.
Did you say sink or stink?
You know how they sink down? No, it's still, the cushions are nice.
Yeah.
So
Did you buy it in Tucson or?
Yeah. Oh. Mm-hmm. We bought it way over in the east side somewhere. I don't know the store anymore. And you know, it's funny because we hauled it home, and the man tied it on the top of Sally's car and had plastic within. It was all plastic cover and everything. And we went through town with this on top of our car. How many people would you see do that now?
How did you get it off?
Seems to be a neighbor came and helped Sally.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, the neighbor came, she came and offered to help.
Because it looks like real wood.
Yeah, and offered to help. So
that's funny.
Get it in. Yeah.
So you grew up on a farm, right?
Well, I grew up, it was farm, you might say, but we didn't have a lot of cattle or things. We just had a few cows, pigs, chickens, the usual. Mm-hmm. So,
was it out in the country?
We were the first one on the farm route. So,
okay. So how far from town was that?
That must have been 4 miles from the city. But no, actually, get into the city, it'd be maybe a couple miles to where you start, Mm-hmm. And so as years went by, it got closer and closer. So finally they extended the city out further. And then they changed the name of the streets and everything to Highway 2. So, yeah, so excuse me. So, that's...
And what was life like growing up in the house that you did?
Gosh, I can still remember my mother scrubbing clothes on the washboard in a tub, and, mm-hmm. and before she washed her clothes. And she did have a wash machine. So, but, and then, like the road, we had our house, and then there was a road, and that road went back of our house and way over to the left, and it was where they'd had all the fairs and the circuses. It was called the fairgrounds. And so we would see the circuses come in, and the big animals would all come by our house and all turn in that road. We owned the road, but that was the city, it was required. They turn in that road and go back there and set up. And when they rained, that road would get so muddy. The mud was almost up the axles of the big wagons. Mm-hmm. And so when they would haul the big wagons out of there, they would have an elephant in the back, and it would be pushing the back of the wagon. There was 2 horses in the front. I mean, the mud was that bad they couldn't get through. So that was kind of interesting. Sometimes it'd be 3 or 4 in the morning, and my mother would always wake us up. It was, if it was a muddy, rainy time, and because we want to watch that. We're little kids. We wanted to watch those big wagons.
Yeah.
Come
so the
out
wagons
there.
were horse-drawn wagons?
They were horse-drawn, and then the elephant was in the back pushing.
And horse-drawn and elephant pushed.
Yeah, and it was, I don't think anyone would ever see that.
No. So do you think that any of your siblings were actually escaped monkeys?
What?
Do you think any of your brothers and sisters were escaped monkeys from the circus?
I don't think so.
No? No.
But I remember one year we had a hammock in the backyard. And I remember this year that a little midget, he was a little black man, and he would come every night and sleep in that hammock. And my mother would tell us, don't sleep, go in the hammock, don't lay in it. You might have lice or something, you know. And then early in the morning, you'd see him get up and leave. But every night during the service, he would sleep in that, you know. He was a monkey.
So how many brothers and sisters did you have?
There was 13 of us.
And
But by the time I was born, there was only 7 of us. You know, because I went to school with one of my nephews, same grade as I.
So the oldest one was quite a bit older than you.
Yeah, she had a boy that was my age. That was Ione. So her name was.
Ione.
Yeah.
Huh.
And she passed away. She was 93. And she may have lived longer, but she fell and broke her hip. And she come through the surgery. But it was too much for her heart. So you know, then there was Elsa. It was next. So she passed. She was quite young. She was only 59. Yeah. So.
Ione and Alta.
And then there was Evelyn.
Evelyn? Okay.
Yeah, and she passed away she smoked. And she was on oxygen, and she fell over the cord of her oxygen. And she broke both arms.
Ooh.
And she never left the hospital. You know, then there was, after her was Winifred.
Winifred?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah, and Winifred, she played the ukulele, yeah, and she played tennis, and she wore these little tennis outfits, yeah. So,
I guess that's where Ted gets it from.
what?
I guess that's where Ted gets it from.
I don't know. I don't think he ever met Winifred. Winifred was 10 years older than I, so. And then there was, she finally had, after 5 girls, she finally had a boy, William, or we called him Buzz, so, but Bill's, you know. And then there was Jack, and then there was Gladys, and then Jack, and then Bernice.
What was the one you just said after Jack?
It was Bernice.
Bernice.
And her actual name was Olive.
Oh.
And she didn't like the name because the kids would tease her and call her Olaf.
Is that like a Norwegian joke? Or
No, it was just,
Olaf?
they just called her that just to be teaser.
Okay.
So, but she always went by Bernice.
Huh.
So, and there was Roy and I and Beverly and Bob. So
I remember maybe 10 years ago, one of your brothers visited you. And when you were at the mobile home, was that Bob?
Bob might have. Yeah, Bob did. Yes.
He did something maybe with the military?
Yes, he was in the Air Force, and then after he came out of the Air Force, then he got a job at Rocketdyne, you know, and then he traveled all over for them. So it was something. Whatever his job was, he was
Sure.
pretty good at it. And anyway, Then when he left them, he became the CEO for Heinz Company. And then he retired after that, I guess. So
Is he still around?
no, he was 74 when he.
Oh, okay.
Oh, he had a heart condition and had a pacemaker, and he got Alzheimer's, or yeah, I guess that's what it was. So anyway, so his wife kind of took care of him, but he was in his 70s.
What was your maiden name?
Deisler.
Deisler. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And what was your mom's maiden name?
Smith.
Smith.
Yeah, it's Smith.
Okay.
So she married my mother's maiden name was Schoonover. Her mother was a Smith, and Smith married Schoonover. So then my mother's name was Edith Maud Schoonover, but she always went by Maud.
Her name is Isma?
Edith.
Edith. Oh, okay.
I had a sister Edith too, so.
Huh. So you had 4 brothers? Did I count that right? Or
Yeah, 4 brothers.
4 brothers and 8 sisters.
And 9.
Well, 9 girls,
Yeah.
8 sisters.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
big family. So, yeah,
What was your favorite part of growing up in your house?
the favorite part.
What your favorite part was?
Well, we each had a chore to do in the house. And my chore was washing the baseboards. At that time, they had wide baseboards. Mine was washing the baseboards in the dining room. We had a huge dining room. Yeah, and I never liked that, but I had to do it. So, yeah, so that was my job.
Huh. Every day?
No,
Okay. Just
no,
occasionally.
maybe once a week or something to dust them off and clean them and wash them and whatever.
Did you have any work with the animals?
No, I was afraid of the animals. One time I went out. I was in the pasture, and the cows always have a path, the cow path. The cows running that path when they get into the barn when they want to be milked or at that time of day. And I went out there, and the cows started coming behind. They started running, and I went running down that path, and my mother was hollering, "Get off the path, get off the path." I was a little kid. I thought they were chasing me. Scared the life out of me. And so, I had a horse, and we had a pony. And the pony, you had to blindfold it to put it on the cart, because otherwise you couldn't get it to go, or, it was they couldn't hook it up. And the horse, his name was Barney. And Barney, you could ride him. I was afraid, though. I did ride him. And the reason is because I got on him once, and my brother hit the back of him. He started running, scared. Oh, no. And I never got on the horse again. and the horse, when he wanted you to get off, he'd go over to the barn, and he'd get real close, so he'd rub your leg on the barn. So.
It's a naughty horse.
Yes, he was. But my brothers liked him, so.
Okay. Huh.
So,
And what was your father's name?
His name was Alfred.
Alfred.
They called him Fred. And he was the top man over the North Dakota mill, an elevator company for the state of North Dakota.
Oh, okay.
And and when my father passed away, I wasn't quite 5 years old. And So to me, that was a sad time.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it was. I was a little girl, and I really thought a lot of my father. And I would go to the table ahead of everybody else and he would sit at the head of the table. I'd sit right by, make sure nobody else got that place next to him. So, so. But I can remember when my father passed away, that a governor came to my house to pay his respects to my mother. His name was Governor Langer. So,
Wow.
well, so.
Interesting. Do you know how he passed away?
Yes, he had cancer of the colon cancer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then after he passed away, I'm sure your older siblings did a lot of work raising you. Is that?
No, not really. No.
Did they all pretty much leave when they were?
Well, Young came around a lot, with her kids, because she didn't live very far. She could walk over. But the others, like Evelyn, she lived there, but she lived another part of town. So, and Edith wasn't married yet, but then she got married, and But I can remember the big storms we had in North Dakota. Really bad, And a lot of times the older ones would be someplace, and my mother would worry about them getting home,
Yeah.
But they usually found a place to stay. Like one brother, when it stormed, he had a friend. And his father was the custodian of the high school. And that's where he went and stayed for the night. Inside the high school, big storm. And my other brother, sometimes he'd go to my sister Edith's house, But I can remember the neighbors going around from out there and digging out the doorways. We couldn't get out of the doors. And we watched, to make sure everybody could get out their doors. So people would come around and shovel the doorways to make sure they got out. And, because the storms were that bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that much snow. So.
What was the town that you lived near?
No, I was Grand Forks.
You lived right outside of Grand Forks?
Yes, Yeah, and it was a small town. There wasn't even 30,000 people at that time, but now, of course, it's a lot bigger. Yeah.
Cool. And what do you remember about your school that you would go to?
We had to walk to school, and our school was over a mile away. And when it would storm, we got out early. It was when we walk home, and it was a long way to walk. And we'd had my mother would put our lunch in a syrup pail. At the end, they had a little syrup pail about this big, and it had a lid on it. And I remember one time in school, I couldn't get the lid off it. And I couldn't eat my lunch, and I cried. The teacher got the lid off.
That's nice of her.
Because so I could eat my lunch. So it was, crazy. Anyway, it was and then we had some other neighbors that lived probably 2 more miles further than us in the country. And I can sometimes when they let the kids out, these kids had no way to get home because they brought them in by car or something. And so my mother would watch for them, and if they were walking, which they were sometimes, she'd call them in, and have them stay there until the parents came, because she had an arrangement, you know, if she'd call them in. And so there were two of them, a little boy and a little girl. So
Were they younger than you?
about the same age, you know. Yeah, the girl was in the same grade, and the boy was younger. And my brother Roy, he liked to skip school. My mother had a terrible time with him. And so I can remember one time he was taking us to school. And then he decided he wasn't going to go. And then he convinced my sister and I to skip school with him. So we hid in the I don't know why we hid there, but we hid in the ditch. And anyway, of course, my mother always found out, you know. So, you know, we skipped school, and I was real unhappy about it. I was scared skipping school. So, but he didn't. He had a terrible time with him, trying to keep him, you know, so from skipping school.
And as he grew up, what was he like? Did he grow out of his troublemaker stage, or?
Oh, he was always kind of a devilish thing, you know. One time, and I was always, we'd go after the fairs, we'd go out there with a rake, and we would rake and find money, you know, where people dropped. And so I would always go with him, ever get up early in the morning after the fair, and the two of us would go out there and, you know. But, and then other things, I would go with him, little things, you know. And he would always, one time there was another couple little boys, young kids said he wanted to go with, but he didn't want me there. So I was with him out there, and he had these two boys, and one little boy said, "I'll give you this if you go home." And it was a wax thumb that had fallen off a wax figure. And he gave me that thumb. I thought it was really sweet. I went home, took the thumb home, and my mother was in the garden, and I went and I showed her that thumb, and she said, "Oh my gosh!" She said, "Oh, she took the thumb from me and threw it." And I cried, and she threw my thumb away. Then she realized it was what it was. We looked and looked and never found the thumb.
Oh.
That's a crazy story, but, you know, I thought that thumb was really something. That's crazy. Yeah.
That's funny. Huh. Did you have any hobbies or favorite things to do?
I like to draw.
Draw? Okay.
I used to draw all the cartoons. You know, I had cartoon characters. I used to draw them, and yeah. And, you know, different things. I used to do a lot of drawing.
Did you play instruments when you were younger?
Yeah, I tried. We had a piano, you know. But otherwise, we didn't have very much of we had a violin. My sister took lessons, but we used to have people come, and my brother played the accordion, and they would bring guitars and that, and they would play music at our house. And then I can remember as a little girl, when my mother's relatives and people would come, they would push all the furniture from the dining room to one side, and they'd dance in the dining room. But we had to go to bed. We were not allowed to.
Oh.
Little kids had to go upstairs to bed. It was a big house. And and so they had the records and instruments then. But I used to like it when the people would come over, some of the, you know, that they knew they had played a guitar, and we had a mandolin, but it had a couple strings missing, but we never really played it or anything. So But I used to like that to hear the music played, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of your sisters played the ukulele.
One of them played the ukulele.
So I know that later you had an auto harp.
I had an auto harp,
When
yeah.
did you learn?
I did play the auto harp some myself. I had books and reading, you know. So,
Did you start that as an adult?
yeah, I would say so, yeah. I always liked the auto harp. What I wish I could play is the dobro. That's my favorite instrument. And I really like the dobro. They say they're easy to play. Have you ever?
I've never tried to play one. No, I don't even really know how you play one.
Oh, you play with like you would a steel guitar. You have and then you have the picks, the two metal picks, and a stump and a pick. But you mostly with the bar, you know. But you can play a Hawaiian, you can play anything on it, you know, the dobros. And they come like round neck, they call them, or they come square. And the one, if I ever got one, I would like one to be the square neck.
It's not too late. You could still learn.
Oh yeah, the square neck, and we'd like that one. And it's called the Hound Dog.
A hound dog.
They've named for it. It was, it's made by Gibson, but it doesn't have Gibson name on it, you know. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, so, but that's the instrument I thought, yeah.
Very nice.
So, Evan, he wants to play the guitar. And
Struggle, yeah.
he wants to play the ukulele.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, so he's trying to get his parents to get him to, yeah, excuse me.
That's great.
So, yeah. So I don't know if they probably will.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
and
sure,
take
yeah.
some lessons. Yeah. I got a couple of guitars still around here, so,
Yeah.
you know. But I had the auto harp, and I told little Sally she could have it, so so I still have it. She hasn't taken it yet, so.
You know, I would like to learn the hammered dulcimer.
The dulcimer? Oh,
I think that would be fun.
that would be a fun one. Yeah, they're nice, huh? Yeah.
It's,
Well, that's Oscar Schmidt, years and years ago, was the top seller of folk music instruments. And he had dulcimers and mandolins and the auto harps and things like that. And then there's the guitarro, but they don't make guitarros anymore. So, you know, it's a combination between the guitar and the auto harp, but it's played with buttons, like an auto harp.
interesting.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask you about when you were getting older, when did you move out of your family home?
Well, in the winter time, as I got older and I started working in Grand Forks, you know, in East Grand Forks, I had some friends, you know. I'd worked for the telephone company at one time. And so I and a friend, we would rent a room in town. So, you know, and just go home weekends. So it was, that was, you know, because it was too far away to try and go home from work every night.
Sure. And then at what point did you meet your future husband?
Let's see. I must have been about 24 years old. No, I was married in 54, so I must have been about 22 or so, a couple of years.
Was that in Grand Forks?
Yeah, he lived in Crystal, Minnesota, North Dakota, and that was up near the Canadian border. In fact, it was 50 miles from the Canadian border. And we lived on the farm for a while,
The same one you grew up in, or where he grew up?
where he grew up. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Just the two of you?
No, when we got married, we moved to Pewaukee, Wisconsin. He had a job there. He went to Wisconsin.
What kind of job was it?
It was, a machinist. So, well, then he went to school to be a tool and die maker. So, you know, so he did okay as far as jobs, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But he was never, they were never too happy. He was used to being on his own, on the, you know. So, but he worked at it. So, you know, so anyway.
So what brought you guys together? How did you meet him?
Let me see. Well, I had a girlfriend that she started going with a boy, and it was a neighbor boy of his. And he would come and see her, and one time he came, and I dated with him, you know. So, and that's how I met him.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had some pictures and that, wedding pictures. Sally's got them. So your mother. I had a little cedar chest, and it had my marriage certificates and everything in it, and little pictures, and the write up in the paper when I got married, you know, and things. And so your mother has all that little chest. I gave it all to her.
Do you remember getting engaged?
Yeah, I got engaged in the, it was just a normal engagement, I guess.
Sure.
And, you know,
It wasn't at
in the fall of the year, but I didn't want to get married till spring, so, yeah. I was getting my teeth fixed and things, and I wanted to get that all done first, you know, and get it paid for and everything. So,
And
so that was, yeah.
when you were growing up, were your parents religious?
Not really. We did go to the Methodist church, but we were as little kids, you know. But as we got older, we didn't. And then in the summertime, we would go to the Salvation Army Church every day for about 2 weeks. And they had a summer camp, you know. Every year we would go, and we used to say, it's because they gave us a bottle of Orange Crush Pop every day at that summer school.
That's a good deal.
But, yeah, and I remember a little girl across the way, or maybe across the field. And their family went to the Salvation Army, and the little girl sometimes would wear two different color socks. She'd get, you know, they got clothes from there. So, and so we would go with them, you know, to church there.
That's cool.
But my mother liked to sing, and she sang a lot of the old hymns. And so she, you know, yeah. And her mother, she had went to an Indian school at one time. That's where she learned to read and write. But she was an Indian.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And do you remember some of your mom's favorite hymns?
Oh, gosh. I just
That's okay.
remember
Yeah,
what they
just
were,
curious.
but she would sing them anyway, you know. But she'd read to us, and she used to read The House That Jack Built. You heard that one? And we were little kids. We were so little that she'd sit in the chair. We'd sit on the floor, and she would read because that was her favorite, I guess. And it was a long poem, and she'd read to us, you know,
That's great.
something different.
Yeah.
Every night she'd read stories, read the Aesop. We said, well,
Aesop's
yeah.
Fables.
She'd read some of those. You don't even see those books around anymore.
Oh,
Maybe because
kids
I'm not looking for them, I guess.
I've read them for my kids.
Did you read them to your kids?
Yeah.
Oh,
The Elephant Got His Long Nose,
yeah,
and all those, those stories.
yeah, and Billy Goat Gruff.
You read that one too, yeah?
Goat Goat Under the Bridge.
There's some old ones and some newer ones.
Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
I read to my kids all the time. Yeah, from the time they're little. You know, so I bought a lot of these books that you would read a little, and then they would tell you what kind of books are they. And they had a picture, and the child could read the picture, and
Oh, yeah.
well, there's a name for the books. Yeah, can't remember. You know,
Yeah.
but I had a lot of those books too.
Okay.
So then I would read a little, and they'd have to read the picture.
Interesting. I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah, kind of like you read and they fill in the blanks, sort of.
yeah. There was a picture there, so there was words where you read, and there was a picture, and the child would
Sure.
kind of
Yeah.
different.
So, did your grandparents live near you?
No, my my grandparents lived in Hibbing, Minnesota.
LID?
Hibbing.
Hibbing. Oh, Hibbing.
Yeah.
Okay.
My grandpa, though, I never ever seen the grandpa. He passed away when he was in his 50s. But my mother used to say he'd come every year. He'd go to the Mayo Clinic, and he would stop and stay with them for a little while. And she said every day he would go down. They were building the bridge between East Grand Forks, Minnesota, and Grand Forks. It was called the Sorley Bridge. Every day you go down there and watch the workers build on the bridge. She said so. So, and at that time, I guess they lived in town. I wasn't born yet, so, yeah. But then he passed away from kidney disease. So, but I guess he said he always went to Mayo Clinic every year, so. And then my grandma, she remarried, so, later. And she moved out to California, so I used to see her once in a while when I was little. And what I thought was strange is that, then I thought was, as a little girl, she would always take her teeth out and put them in a cup, and she'd set them at the back of the table every time she'd come. So, and we'd get up and look at them. We thought that was so strange. At that time, we did.
Yeah, I suppose that would be.
As a little kid,
That's funny.
That's funny. That'd be the only thing I can remember about Grandma.
Yeah. Did you have any relatives who you know of that were in the Civil War?
Oh yeah, my mother's grandmother's a dear brother, and he was in the Civil War. And I have a paper here that tells all the battles and in the letter from me where he was discharged in this, so. And he lived he lived in Jamestown, North Dakota. And there used to be a museum just out of Jamestown. And his picture was in the battles where it was a small Civil War museum. He used to be in that museum. So,
Interesting.
but the Deitzlers, they had a lot of them in the Civil War. So there's still a lot of Deitzlers in St. Louis, in Fenton. I went down there once to see them. In the towns around St. Louis.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, but we have a lot of relatives there. Still, you know. I had a man call me once, and he said he thought he was a cousin of mine. His name was Deitzler. But I didn't know. We just talked on the phone. That was about it. So, yeah.
Interesting.
So, But Schoonover used to be Von Schoonover, but they took the Von away. So.
Because of the World
Well,
War?
that's just the way it was, yeah. They
Oh, I see.
come when they're in this country. It was Schoonover then. And she used to say she was English Dutch, because Schoonover is a Dutch name.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see a family tree. There's
What?
a family tree.
Well, little Sally has all the things.
She
Debbie
has
took
that
them over
stuff.
to
Okay.
all the family tree stuff. And then I do have a little packet, but I already got it packed. So I had it. But when I come across it, when I unpack it, because that was stuff that I had in the wardrobe. And a man came, somebody said from church or something that Sally and them knew he wanted the wardrobe. So I had to unpack the drawers and the wardrobe, and it was there in there. So I got them packed ready. So I packed them in a box. But when I find them, you know. But your mother should have the pictures and stuff. Like Grandpa and Grandma.
Get them all and scan them. and
Yeah,
give them back.
like Grandma and Grandma. Deitzler had pictures of all them, you know. And I think I gave a bunch to your mother. I think there was quite a different ones in the family who wanted them.
So do you know of any grandparents or great-grandparents who were immigrants to the U.S.?
I really don't know.
No. I mean, yeah.
You know, I don't know if any of them might have. There might have been, maybe not them, but their parents might have been. I don't know, really. You know. So I know that my Groonovers, they had lived in Michigan at one time. And my mother, when she was their little girl, well, her mother had, they call it consumption. She had troubles, and they moved to Tyler, Texas, and he lived there a long time. Yeah, so I think your mother has around Edna, you know, had told some things around about my mother's family. You know, she talks about how when they came back from Tyler and moved to North Dakota,
Right.
and my grandfather, you know, he was the sheriff of Bottineau County in North Dakota. So, you know, and they owned a hotel and a boarding house. And my mother said, I don't want every one of my girls to work in a restaurant. That's too hard. She said she had to make all the pies. And she said, you know, she didn't.
That was your mother who
Yes.
said that?
My mother, she said, I don't want my girls to work in a restaurant.
Did you ever work at a restaurant then?
No,
No? Just the
We
post
just
office?
never did. No, no, I worked for the telephone company, and I worked the old cord system, you know. And then when they changed over, they didn't need that many people, so they were going to send us to different telephone companies. So my girlfriend and I, we both worked there, and we went to Bismarck, North Dakota. We didn't like it there at all, so then we quit the telephone company, and we came back to Grand Forks. So, you know, well then I went to work. Both of us went to work in a heat bowl. What do you want to call it? Where you used to put the little thing in the car. It was like a little tube, and you put it down in the radiator, we warm the radiator to keep it from
Oh, like
at the winter time.
a block heater.
Yeah, it was a
Some kind of heater.
Yeah, and we worked there, and I was a solderer. I put the solder with the wire wires at the top.
Okay.
I don't remember what she did, but we worked there for a while. So,
It was like an assembly line.
what?
Was it like a
It
factory?
was called a heating bolt.
Okay.
Yeah, I had an old heating bolt, and I had a tie heating thing. But when I moved from my house, I don't know what happened, what they did with all that. Because they would give us different things, you know. So I had it was a necktie thing with a little heat bowl on it. And, yeah, and then I had an old fat heat bowl, you know, about that long, about that big round. Yeah. Which was one that was made so that for souvenir. Yeah.
Interesting.
So, and whatever happened to him, so.
When did you start working for the Postal Service?
Well, that was when Willis and I parted. I went through the newspaper to find out where the best jobs were. And almost everything was computers and computer programming, computers. You know. So then I went to Hennepin County College, you know, and I took a course in computer programming and computers. And I took 3 buses out there in the winter. and I went through the school, and I had a job before I even got out of school. And I was at Dayton's, and I ordered I went up putting in orders, you know. Well, then I quit there, and I went to work for, they made records, you know, the big records. I can't remember the name of the company. Anyway, I went to work there, and while I was there, one of the ladies said to me, you know, her husband worked at the Veterans in Fort Snelling. She said the post office has on the board for jobs for people with programming, you know. She said, why don't you go out there and put your application in? And so I did. And right away, two weeks later, they called me in for an interview, and I passed the interview, and so I got in.
Was that during the time when World War II was happening?
No, World War, no.
Was it after that?
No, this was after Willis and I. You know, no, after my brother Jack was in World War II. World War II was back in the 40s.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this was well after.
Oh yeah, this is where Willis and I were parted, and I felt I needed to go to work. I needed to go.
Later.
Yeah, much later. I needed to go to work, and so as they said, I went through the newspaper. So but the post office, they send you to school every year for 2 weeks as a brush up in what you're doing, and they pay for it to a college. So every year, so I went to school for them. So then I put in for promotions, and I finally got to where I was a accounting specialist with them.
Hmm.
So, but every year I went back to school, and every year, so I worked myself up to where I was making 45 a year,
Oh.
which was pretty good because I had Peggy in college, and so
Mm-hmm.
so that's what I made when I stopped working. So I put in for about 3 different motions. But first of all, I put myself in as a all-around person that I would work in any department that they needed me or wanted me. So I worked in general accounting. I typed in programs for the computer people. I took accounting. I took travel. I went through all the different areas of the Postal Service as a floater whenever they needed me. This way I got to learn a lot of different places, different things.
That's
So,
great.
yeah, and dispersed, I worked in a lot of the different areas. So then until I finally worked myself up, where I was going mostly in accounting.
Hmm.
And I had a real nice manager, and he really helped me. So,
That's great.
yeah.
Hmm.
But,
What was your favorite job of all the jobs you had?
to me, all jobs got boring to me.
What was that?
Boy, they were boring after a while.
Oh, okay.
My favorite job, I can't think of it, would be my favorite one.
Well,
I always took another little sideline job. A lot of times I would just go and like on Saturdays. One job I took as a sideline job was typing in auto parts. And this company was they furnished auto parts for all over, and I typed in orders for them. That was just a part-time job. So, besides my other job. So,
did you ever travel outside of the U.S.?
no,
No? Have you ever left the U.S. then?
never left the U.S.
Even Canada?
Oh yeah, I've been to Canada
Okay.
several times, yes. Never thought about Canada.
It's
No.
the 51st state.
Well, see, we used to go up to Canada just to be going up there. You could just go over the border then. You didn't need no stopping. It was like you're driving over the border, driving back. You can't do that anymore.
No.
No, and the farmers used to sell to like machinery and that back and forth over the border. So, it was nothing. But not anymore, so,
Yeah, that's interesting.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
so when we were on the farm, your mother couldn't drink the water. She got really sick. And the doctor put her in the hospital. The doctor said it was from the water. She got colicky or something. So it was terrible diarrhea and that. And I had to and they put her in. That's what they said it was from. But your mother, I had to be careful of juices and things anyway, because she'd get eczema, I think she said she still has to watch it. So, so, yeah. But she was just a baby then, so.
What was your favorite part about parenting? Do you have any favorite memories of parenting?
I can't really think of anything. Um, I think it was just kind of fun to be a parent, really. Some of the things they did. My Sally had a tooth. Well, it was loose because we lived on a hill. In back of us there was this big hill, and all the kids would come over there and play on that hill. And this little boy, he was a hemophiliac, whatever they called it, and he was on a sled, and I guess I don't know, somehow or another, the sled hit Sally, and the tooth became loose. And so I took it to the dentist, and he said, well, don't touch it. It'll tighten up. It's not really that bad. It's not really, it's loose. But, well, so we had to be careful what she ate and everything, Well, the girls were playing, and they were playing dog, the two girls. And Sally was the dog, and Debbie was the Luis. And so they had a belt, and they put the belt in the mouth. Sally was the dog, and she put that little belt in her mouth. And Debbie was pulled, and she pulled the tooth out.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. I don't know if Sally remembers this still, but I didn't know what to do. This little kid, wasn't time for her other tooth to come in.
Yeah.
And she had that little front tooth out. I didn't even think about them playing a game like that. But they did. They played dog. What kids don't think of. And anyway, so Sally always had that tooth for a long time. I get, out of the front of her.
Probably not till she was 6 or something did it come in.
Right, so they were little kids. That's right, not till the other tooth come in. So, but kids do funny things. You never know what they're going to do.
Yeah. It's been, what?
What they're
It's been
going
an
to do.
hour. Do you want to take a break or stop?
Not really.
Okay.
Maybe you do.
Just need some of this. Do you want some water?
No, thank you. My water's here. I have water all the time. But my girls were kind of shy girls, So. Mm-hmm. Deborah, she never went out for sports. She liked to read. She liked history. And she liked, but Sally, again, she liked to go out and run and, and ski and different things. Whereas Deborah never liked to do that, two opposites. Even today, Debbie goes hiking and she reads a lot. She belongs to book clubs. So your mother does a lot of walking too. That's good.
Did you ever stop working when you had small kids? Were you ever stay?
I didn't work at all when the kids were little.
Okay.
At all, no. I didn't go back to work till after, But I worked, we had a cleaning business. And when the kids were, except for Peggy, of course. And we would go there and clean. We had some beauty salons. We cleaned 5 of them.
Who's we?
Willis and I.
Oh, okay.
And so we go there and clean those. Excuse me. Mostly on weekends. And so the kids would take care of Peggy. So,
Yeah.
And one time, they were supposed to be taking care of her, but one time I painted, we were remodeling some of the house, and I was taking the paint off and staining, and the doors. And then I had a long hallway, and I had painted that hallway, and I the old girl, and now that painful driving is, don't touch that wall. Well, I come home, and when we come home, there was little stick people on the whole wall. Peggy had put pictures on that whole wall. And the girls, we didn't know she did that. She thought it was really great. Peggy, she was a little girl. And I had her repaint the wall. But one time, Sally used to go down the basement. She would polish stones. She had a little machine, and she'd polish and work on these stones. And she'd do it in the basement, on a little table thing down there. And I always, on the bottom of the basement steps, at the very bottom, I always kept a rug, Well, Peggy was just a baby, and she was creeping, and I would tell them, don't, make sure you have that door closed at all times, because the baby could, I guess Sally went down there and she didn't close the door quite all the way, and the baby was able to get that door and fell down, rolled down the basement.
Oh no.
Yes. Sally was scared to death. Oh, she was scared because the baby had fallen down the basement. But I had a heavy night thing on her, one piece, a blanket, almost like a little blanket on the baby. It was in the evening, and she didn't get a bruise, The baby just rolled down those steps and onto that. And Sally was all but scared Sally after this. She was all cried and everything because the baby fell down the steps. And when she left the door, not quite closed. So, but she was okay. So, But Sally took care of the baby a lot, to the point where she would even call her mama. We put Peggy to bed every night. She'd get out of that bed and she'd go down to Sally's and sleep with Sally. And Sally only had a twin bed. Well, we finally had to get Sally a full size because we couldn't keep Peggy out of her bed. And so there was one day then we said, we were all at the dinner table, and Sally said, I wonder what time that kid comes to my bed at night. And we didn't know. And so that night, Peggy got out of her bed, went down. She woke up Sally and said, Sally, I'm here. What time is it? She remembered what Sally said. So, but we couldn't keep her out of there. Sally was her friend.
How much older is Sally than Peggy?
She must be about 12 years.
Okay.
Yeah, 12 or 13, something like that. Yeah, 10 is 10 years. She'd be 12. Debbie would be 14 years. Yeah.
What are some big historical events that you remember?
What?
Big historical events that you can remember?
I don't know.
I mean, like the moon landing.
The what?
The moon landing?
Oh.
Or some big news story that you can remember?
Gosh, I can't remember any big news story.
No?
No.
You remember JFK being assassinated?
Oh, yeah, I remember that when JFK was shot, the neighbor called, and she said, turn on your TV, somebody shot the president. And so I immediately turned the TV on. There was a neighbor and I, every Tuesday we would, after we got kids to school, we'd go downtown. We'd take a bus And then I lived in Waukesha, Wisconsin. And every Tuesday, and we'd stop at Woolworths, and we'd take the dart and we'd hit the balloon, and that's how much we'd have to pay for our banana split. every time we went, we hit the balloon, then we get a banana split. And we,
Nice.
but I always had fun going with Lucille, so.
That's fun.
Every Tuesday.
Do you remember when?
But she,
Go ahead.
no, she was the one that called me, So,
So she still calls you in.
told me that you did turn your TV
Oh, I
on.
see. Back
Yeah.
then, okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, she was.
I suppose
So-
you didn't keep in contact with her, did you?
What?
Did you keep in contact with her?
Well, no, because she remarried and moved, but I had already moved into. So she had 2 children. They were a little bit older than mine. Maybe 2 years or so, but they didn't play together. So she played with, they had neighbors next door, and they had kind of a swimming pool, but it wasn't a child, a little bigger than a child. The kids would go over there and swim and just get in their swimming pool with their kids. And one time, Debbie, the girl used to come around, Donna, her name was, and Debbie, she went over there with Donna into the pool. And because Debbie sunburned so easily, I had put a little sweatshirt, on her. And when she come home, she didn't have the shirt. I went after her, and I said, "Oh my gosh, what happened to it? The shirt." And her mother, the woman said, "Well, she didn't want it on, so we took it off." And she was burned so bad. I was up all night. I had to call the doctor, putting stuff in and bathing that burn on her back. From there, and taking off that shirt, I was so angry with that lady. I thought, you should know better than you.
Yeah.
There was a reason why. I put, like little Sally puts shirts on her boys. Maybe your kids, you put some on because they burn so bad.
Did you have any role models or mentors when you were growing up, or heroes?
I liked Western things.
Westerns.
Always, yeah. My sister Winnie, she was the one I loved the best. I admired as my sister. All the sisters. That's the one
She was the second?
No, she was maybe the 5th
The
child.
fifth. Oh, okay.
Or 6th. She was one of the older ones. Yeah. But she married a farm boy man. So.
And what did you like about
Oh
her?
yeah, she was like, she played the ukulele. She did tennis, and she just did things that were so different than the others. And she was my bed partner when I was a little girl. And so she, so I always was closer to Winnie. But then when she became a teenager or so, she moved out and lived with the Panovitzes. The Panovitzes owned a big fur store in Grand Forks. And she helped Mrs. Panovich in the house, and they entertained a lot. And Mrs. Panovich taught her a lot, how to entertain and everything. And she became a very wonderful seamstress. Mrs. Panovich had taught her. She made me skirts and things for school, and so I guess I just thought she was special. So
That's great.
yeah, But otherwise, I don't know, hmm
Interesting.
But I liked to listen to the Grand Ole Opry when I was young.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would come home at night and I'd turn the Grand Ole Opry on in my bedroom.
What are some? Was there a time in your life that you thought was really difficult and hard?
I think I can't think of any special. Well, I think because we were after my father died, we didn't have very much, and I think we were kind of poor people, you might say. But we never thought of ourselves as poor. No one ever told us we were. I guess people didn't tell them they talked that way, so I never thought of us being poor. But actually, we were. We didn't have very much. And my mother, it's all she could do to food, do big gardens, and we would help her in the garden. And she, so life was not really easy when I was little. And then we'd have babysitting jobs, Sometimes the people wouldn't even pay us. Other times they would. They'd say, well, I'll pay you later, People did that. And, they really didn't have the money to. But I think it was difficult times for everybody. Because I can remember the WPA. And because of the fairgrounds was back there, they had the WPA men put in sidewalks and stuff around in there, and a pavilion of buildings. And that was just for work for people that just, they had, something for it to do. But they'd have to walk by our house, so there'd be a whole string of men walking by our house. And we would be outside and watch them as they would go into the fairgrounds, and these big line of men to do all that work. So, and that was the WPA workers. Yeah. So, so it was that was good. And during the war years, they would go back there and they would put up tents and camp there. So sometimes there'd be, in the highway, there'd be just a mile or two of army trucks. And they would pull in there and go down the road where we were and back into the fairgrounds and pitch tents and the whole piece. And then there'd be, but back by the highway by our house, there would always be a sentry, and you would hear him say, who goes there? You'd hear him say,
So they didn't have any elephants to push them through the mud, though.
I don't know what they did. Well, they did gravel the road, finding different things, so maybe that was it. But anyway, whatever. They army during the war years. And one time there was a whole bunch of, I suppose a whole battalion of all black people. And they were back there. So, but when they were there, the army, the military boys would come in. My mother again had an open house. They'd play the piano and they'd sing, and they would, and I was a little girl, but I can remember them coming there, and the soldiers. And the only thing is, they would go out and milk cows. The boys would. So some of them were, just doing crazy things. So, but we didn't like that. But otherwise, which no one else would ever see, these big battalions of trucks, and then camping there. Yeah. And during the war years, they would have, they went to a lot of the farmers' sons and stuff would go to, to war, and they had people from Jamaica come over and do help for the farmers. Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, go ahead.
And then what's something that you're proud of from any time in your life?
What am I proud of? I was never a person that really. I guess maybe I can't say. Well, what I think I wanted to be proud of is that I was kind of. Most of my brothers and sisters never graduated from school, and I think that I was always very proud of my drawings, and I was, and in later years, I went back and got a GED, and myself, and I finished high school, and I went back, which loud and then, I just had more. Wanted to do more for, and that always helped me, of course, with jobs and that. So, I think maybe I, looked out for, did things maybe that were different than the rest of them. So, but
You were being like Winnie.
yeah, I guess so, and she was like that too.
Yeah.
She graduated did the same thing, so. So, yeah, she could take the littlest things and make it nice, and I could too. That's I could make it look nice no matter where I was, what I had.
That's great.
Yeah, I was,
If you could go back in time and do something differently, is there anything you can think of?
If I could think of anything differently, I think I've always been very sensitive and soft-hearted, and I think that, and I feel sorry for people, and so people could take advantage of me, because they knew that you would be, you could go to you would not turn them down. Well, that's not good either. But I think that was part of when I was with Jack, remember him? Is that I felt sorry for him and I felt bad. And yet, at the same time, there were times I really felt I needed to get away from him. Because I felt he was using me kind of a way, and many, many things I didn't like.
Sure.
And I took him to different places and told him where he could live. And he wouldn't go. He had it too nice. And so I didn't like that. So the best thing that could happen to me was that when, I shouldn't say this, when he passed away or whatever, because that gave me the freedom I needed, which I had, I really needed to get away from it. But how was I going to get away when somebody that needs someone, and I just couldn't walk away. So it makes a difference.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hear that.
You're just catering, So there's a lot of things I would do, like a lot of times the computers would crash at work, and they'd say, well, we got to go home. We got paid for it. And some of us girls would go into one of the little town there, Daly City, and we'd go to a big flower shop which they like to go to, and I'd go with some of the girls from work, different places, and then I would come home at the time I was supposed to come home from work, and maybe the whole afternoon went with these girls, know, we go and just have a great time. But I never told him, see, he never knew. I had to. That's the only way I could get to do what I want to do. And so, you know, so, you know, I felt more freedom than, you know. So a lot of times when I go to see the girls, it was like he was always trying to, where did you go? Where did you? Well, I would never tell them what I did, you know, because I would go on my own and just say he thought I was maybe going store shopping or something, whereas I was meeting one of the girls, one of my daughters, you know. So it made a difference. I mean, he had friends, but he was very jealous of me. That's bad. That's a sickness for people. It can be. For him it was.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was that.
Is there anything in your life that maybe, like, your grandkids would be surprised to hear about? I mean, the story of the elephants in your next to your house is pretty good, but anything else like that? Or
I think of anything else. Well, no, we used to have rodeos out there. These were real rodeos. These were not just where they have the bronco, where they're, where they double horses and that. These were real cowboys. They were really, really, really rodeos. Whereas today they're, they're not like they were then. Yeah. So some of the cowboys would be, real cowboys, you might say.
And that was at the fairgrounds also?
That was always, all the events like that, were all held there. Well, then they put in big racetracks, so they had races out there. We used to go to the races. And my brother had a race car, so, yeah.
Wow.
So we always had different ones around there. He had a shed, and he had a race car in it, and they were always around there working on the race cars. So
that's great. Which brother was that?
that was Bob.
Bob.
Yeah. I can't think of anything that I, myself.
Sure.
So,
Interesting.
I think I've always been a worker. And it's hard for me to even sit where I am, I don't even have TV on. I mean, I've got to keep busy. I got to be doing things. I do. I'm not a person that, I just got to find something to do.
Sure. Do you have any secret talents or skills that?
Well, I do plastic craft. They don't hardly do that anymore. And I used to knit years ago, but I don't knit. I do crocheting, and I like all that.
What about playing the chanter?
Oh, I took lessons for the bagpipes, and I had my chanter. I used to walk around the house playing my chanter. Yeah, So, Scotland the Brave, that was my favorite. And in California, I went to lessons, and the teacher was one that also taught the bagpipe band that they had for Lockheed. They had a big bagpipe band, and he was their teacher. He was the teacher I had. And it was strange because when I was going to that class, one of the men that were there was a man that I went to school with. And we were surprised to see one another after many, many years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow. You
we
recognized him.
recognized. Yeah, he recognized me before. Then I recognized him.
Did he call you Tiny?
No, they didn't. They didn't call me Tiny. So, but my family, my sister, she called me Tiny Ann all my life.
Tiny Ann.
Tiny Ann, she called me. See, that's my middle name is Ann. She always called me that, my one sister. Yeah, so, But when I was born, I had a heart problem. And so I would faint all the time, especially if I got excited over something. And so I was always, as I was starting to grow, getting older, everything I did was, don't do that, Catherine. You should be doing that. No, don't do that. And so I was stubborn. My mother said I was most stubborn of all her children. I would deliberately do things because I wasn't going to have it. They would tell me, you can't do that. So nobody would take me to see Santa Claus because I paid. So my mother always took me to see Santa Claus. I can remember fainting on the bus on the way home from Santa Claus.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And my sister always wanted to race to the mailbox, which was like maybe 5 or 6 mailboxes. And we were on the farm road, and these were different ones you come and get the mail. And so we had a couple blocks to get there, And so my sister would always want to race, and every time I raced with her, I fainted.
Oh, no.
And I would then the mailman would take me home if he was there. And if he wasn't, then I would just wait till I woke up. And we were talking about different things the last time I seen her. And she said, oh, I can remember, she said, when we would race to the mailbox and you would faint and I would just leave you there. I said, Beverly, that's terrible. I used to feel so bad over that. I said, shame on you for doing that. So she was younger than I, but she was bigger than I, taller than I. And but I never liked the mailman taking me home. So
You didn't like that?
well, no, it was embarrassing by that
Yeah.
time, time went by. But as the doctors always said I'll grow out of it this time. Well, I did as time went by. But I got so I could tell when it was going to happen. And I would immediately find it, sit down and so, yeah. So it was, but people would say, oh, don't do that. You should be doing that. No. And then I got lots of freckles. That was another thing. And so and I didn't like all my freckles. And so then my mother would put shirts on me. In the summertime, it was so hot because she said I had to have it because I burned too bad. Oh. And one time we went over to the fair and they were giving prizes away for different things. And I happened to be walking, and we walked by the stage, and they were looking for someone with the most freckles. And they said, well, there's a little girl. There's a little girl with lots of freckles. I was so embarrassed, and I must have been maybe 8, 9 years old. And they came and gave me this prize with movie tickets. And I didn't want them, and I didn't want to go up there. I was so upset because this man was the most freckles. And I never even went to the movie. I was so upset over him. I didn't like my freckles. So, crazy, but, and I had a nephew and he had lots of freckles. And when we would play cowboys a lot of times, Indians and stuff. And he called himself the Freckle Kid all the time.
The freckled
The
what?
freckled kid.
Freckled kid.
Yep, he was going to be the villain, and he was always the freckled kid. and when I was a young girl, little girl, they had about a couple miles away in the car, they had a coulee. You know what the coulees were, rivers like. We call them coulees. They were small rivers.
Okay.
Okay. There was an old covered wagon out there. And we would play on that covered wagon. And we would play cowboys and Indians and stuff like that, which the little boys would. Then also out there was, you know how you see those, when you go into the big ranches, like in movies, High Chaparral, you see, or some of those old movie things, and you see the big gate with it. There was a big gate like that out there, and it's in Ekman Range. I don't know if there was a ranch there or what it was, but that Ekman Range thing was there, like where you drive through. It was still there, and it was made out of logs, like, and then in the top, it was carved in, you know. And so we'd often wonder why it said that, you know. Well, anyway, this coulee would get high in the spring, you know, the water, but otherwise we could walk across it on stones. And but then some of the big boys or somebody from town came out. They pushed that old wagon in the river, and it went down the river, you know. So that was the end of the covered wagon.
Bummer.
Yeah.
Huh.
So, but then there was the Bakers. They lived out there too. They had a big farm and lots of cattle, and you know, so you were like a big ranch out there. So it was, and so they did. So then where their big ranch, there was also a big coulee, but it was a bigger one, bigger. And the boys would take rafts and go out on it, and they'd skinny dip. Girls never went there, only the boys. So, yeah. And one time they were there, and the two Overby boys, they had a big fight. The boys did. They shot and killed one of the boys on the raft.
Wow.
Yeah, and the Steiner boy came. We were the closest for them to come through a telephone or anything. The Steiner boy, that must have been 2 miles or more, 3 miles around the country. He ran all the way to our place and told my mother what happened. And she said my mother called, but the Steiner boy stuttered real bad. He had a terrible time. And so she called the police, and the boys, I don't know why both of them, they went to jail for a few years. You know, so for just shooting this boy. So anyway, but
wow.
no exciting things happened. So
That's pretty exciting.
that was exciting. I
Yeah.
don't know. Almost every night we used to play Monopoly when we got a little older. We play Monopoly almost. And then there was a neighbor would come over, and he would play Monopoly with us. So, yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah. We had,
Was it the same game for years and years?
what?
Did you ever finish a game?
I don't know if we ever did. No. We had neighbors that were the closest neighbor. Well, it was the Johnsons. And sometimes Mr. Johnson, he would go into work, he'd pick us little kids up so we didn't have to walk to school, and he'd give us a ride. Well, I don't know, but Mrs. Johnson called my mother, and she told my mother she didn't want the kids riding with him. So we couldn't ride with him anymore.
Oh.
And she said, she talked in Norwegian. She'd say, "This is Mrs. Janssen," and you know, when she'd talk with her Norwegian brogue. Yeah, so she wouldn't give us a ride. He couldn't. His wife wouldn't let him. So
Do you know why?
we never knew why.
Oh.
We never knew why Mr. Johnson couldn't give us a ride anymore. No. Yeah, well then they moved, and another family came there. And he sleepwalked. And one time he walked out the door, broke his leg.
Oh no.
So, and they had a boy. They only had one child. He was part Indian, and he was kind of a nice-looking man, though, for an Indian man. But the boy, he was not a nice-looking man. Boy, they called him Corky. So, and one time, Corky, it was circus day, and I was out watching, but I had walked down further, down the road, so that he yelled out where a bunch of kids were watching the circus come, because then they got so they could walk a mile or so from a railroad track and walk down the road in front of us, all the big animals and that. And so we were down there watching them. And so when we were going to go home, Corky said I could ride. He'd give me a ride home on his bicycle. So I sat where we would sit on the bicycle. We didn't sit behind or anything. We'd sit on the handlebar, You see that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got up and sat on his handlebar, and when I went to get out, the seat of my pants ripped.
Oh no.
Yeah, I was so embarrassed. And he gave me a ride home on his bicycle. Thought it wasn't worth it.
That was nice of him, but yeah.
And Corky used to come and dig us out in the mornings.
Oh, okay.
The snow, so he was a big, tall kid.
Sounds like a nice kid.
He was a nice kid, he really was. Yeah. Yep. Funny things, your kids.
Yeah. Is there... what would you like your legacy to be?
What would I like what?
Legacy. Your legacy to be.
What
would you like your legacy?
My legacy?
Legacy. Have you ever
Oh
thought
my
about
goodness. My legacy? I would like to be known as a person that would help people. I worked for hospice, for a while, and I don't know. I don't know what to, I mean, that's the bad part because I was so. People could use me so easily because I was too good, That could happen. But I'm glad I was. It's what I wanted to be,
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't, then I would be, And when I belonged to the clubs, a lot of times I would bring something special for the people. I would make something special every year for the people at the club. There were like from 15 to 20 of us. I would make something for Christmas. I would bring different kinds of cookies, breads and things, and have a little Christmas party. But I was just a kind person, and I enjoy doing these things.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So.
I know the kids all appreciate the birthday cards that you send.
Yeah, I always, I don't know why after I get over there how I'm going to do all that, but I don't know if I can or not, but do it as long as I can. So I started that years ago.
Yeah.
But then when they get to where they're out of high school, out of college and that, I have no more. They can go out and do it at night, yeah. This was Jordan's last year.
Okay.
See, he don't get it now. He's on his own.
Poor Jordan.
So we're Alyssa 1 more year, GP. So that's a long time. Yeah.
Cool.
But anyway, I think I'm just, I'm not a person that's real sociable, actually, I'm kind of quiet.
Mm-hmm.
But, I just have never been, so let everybody else do the talking. I'll just listen. But I don't, I just think what I want to think,
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Cool. Well, that was all my questions. Is there anything that you were just thinking of talking about that I didn't ask?
Can't think of anything.
Okay.
You can think of more than I can.
Well, I mean, I'm sure in the middle of the night you're going to wake up.
I'll think of things.
Keep a pad of paper and you can write it down and we can talk again.
Yeah, well, can't think of anything right now. I think I've told you every story. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's been at least a couple.
yeah. This maybe isn't a very nice story. We used to go see when my mother would come, we'd take her to see an aunt and uncle of hers. They were elderly people. And one time we went, and she was really quite deaf, but he would do most of the talking. And all the time we were there, she would be letting air out of herself, and we could hardly stand it there. We could hardly stand being there. And so my mother thought it was terrible, but she probably couldn't hear herself, and he would keep looking at her, and it wasn't a nice visit. But I did, as a rule, like to go there. And Willis had some nice aunts I used to like. Every time we went to one of Willis's aunts, she had to make hash browns for Willis. No matter what time of the day it was the evening. Oh, I got to make your hash brown. No, you like them so well. So I always, they owned the meat store. So yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah. I said I shouldn't tell that one, but all your experiences in life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So, I should Oh, well. My voice isn't very good. I don't talk enough for one thing. I can only talk to myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm here alone most of the time, so.
You need more visitors then?
What?
Do you want more visitors?
Would I want more visitors? Not terrible, isn't it? But not really. I mean, I kind of like to be alone and not be to me,
Yeah, I mean, some is good, but not too much.
No, I don't get out and around very much anymore. I used to, every day almost I get out, but I don't so much. Now I just don't feel like it. I don't feel so good all the time. And my coordination is not good, and I'm so slow. And so, I'll walk to the mailbox or walk down here the block and back. But that's about it.
Yeah. It's getting pretty warm.
Yeah. I go in really early in the morning. So, yeah. I've already been to the mailbox this morning.
Do you take off your sweater when it's...
I don't. It's cool then.
What about when it's 100?
Well, I probably will then. But I have a sweater on all the time, most of the time. But older people do feel, So, well, when I was low in blood there, I was so cold I was putting a winter jacket on. And it was, But it was because my blood was so low.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was wearing a winter jacket around here. I didn't know I was so low in blood.
Hmm.
So,
Interesting.
so yeah, your mother came over to help me just to clean out some closets and things that I hadn't got done just after I moved here, and I was going to kind of help her, and I started, and then no, I can't do it. I'd have to sit down. I just didn't have any energy, and so then I have to just keep sitting down, and then I went to the kidney specialist. She went with me for the first time and found out it was my blood. I have to have a blood test every time I go there. And I found out my blood was so low, it was almost ready for a transplant.
Wow.
I was that bad. I was feeling terrible, I couldn't lean over it. I feel like I should faint. So, and that's what it was. But now it's real good. I just had a blood test. Said everything looked good.
That's good.
Yeah. But
Wow.
I have the one lung they said they want to check out.
Okay.
Maybe you heard that.
Now say it again.
You didn't hear that I have to have a biopsy on the one lung.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's okay because that lung was, when I had the first pacemaker put in, they punctured that lung. And the water, pneumothorax or something they call it, went into the chest cavity. And they told me for a long time I had scar tissue there. And then they cut the plexus nerve. And that's the nerve that comes from the neck down the arm, paralyzed my arm. So, yeah. But I finally, with enough therapy, I got over it. I
Okay.
still have some numbness here in this part of my arm. But, but I'm still going. My writing is bad. I can't write a letter. What happens is I'll start writing and all of a sudden it'll go like this because I've nerve damage. But that's fine. I get along without writing a letter.
Become left-handed.
Well, I do a lot with my left hand because I had to for a year. And I got so, anybody throw anything out of me, I catch with my left hand because I was getting used to using my left hand. You're not left-handed, are you? No?
No.
Peggy is. Very much so. Even her leg, she's right through. I used to see her playing hopscotch. I'd say, my gosh, that kid's left all the way down that side. She's hopping on her left leg. So, but Michael always says, when I sit by her, I always have to make sure I sit on the right side because otherwise she puts her elbow in my mouth when she eats.
That's funny.
Yeah, well, I never thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
I had a sister, Gladys was left-handed, and Grandma Stearns was left-handed. So, yeah, I don't know, I think it's your mother has a picture of Grandma and Grandpa Stearns. So, I think they're big 8x10 pictures.
Okay.
Yeah, she's got a lot of that stuff.
Cool.
Now my Grandpa Deichler, his name was Alfred Deichler, and his wife's name is Nancy. And she was from Kentucky originally, and he was from Missouri. I don't know how they met or anything. But then she passed away. He remarried someone else, So I picture her too, so I don't know. Yeah. So anyway, when Deitzler farm was sold. And, the two boys, there were three boys, like my father and two other boys. There was, one was Gene. I don't remember the name of the other one now. But because I went to see both of them, I guess. But they said they'd been working the farm for quite a few years, and they were entitled to the whole farm when he passed away, and they didn't think it should be divided up among the three boys and the girl, the Minnie. And then there was a doll, they called her. There was another, she passed away when she was quite young, so there was Minnie. I went and see Minnie, and Minnie was then in her summer home in St. Louis, and it was like a little cabin. We went to see her at the summer home, and this mold smells bad. I got to stand it in there. I don't know how she could live there. She just moved in, hadn't unpacked her stuff yet. So, Minnie. But then we went to Wilkinson's, and that's a relative, Missouri, and I liked her. She was an elder lady, but she was a very attractive lady, very pretty lady. And she's the one that showed us around places, where the cemeteries and stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So anyway, but for my father. But anyway, the farm was never, well, every year my mother would get $1 from a lawyer. And then she'd hear from Aunt Minnie. She'd say, don't sign it, don't accept it, because they're trying to drop Alfred, my father, out of the will by saying they worked the farm and he wasn't there. He shouldn't get anything. So the only way they can do it is to give him some little thing. So that's what the $1's for. So my mother would send it back, And so every year, for years. Then finally they did sell it. I don't know what they did. But we never had any more dollars than my mother. And then when my mother went there one time, after, my father passed away, my sister took her, and her brothers came over to Minnie. And they both cried and said they'd made a mistake. They should never have did what they did. And the one that had a child that was, he was actually a monologue. He was not bright, in other words. And that was Eugene. And he said that he felt the Lord that he had punished this child, given him this child. That was the way of punishing him for taking over, for taking what wasn't all his. He got funny ideas. So, but he was the boy was living in a home of some kind. So I had a cousin that was blind. It was a relative of my mother's, and his name was Bob Frank, and he, every year when he would come he would go up to the blind school in Bathgate, which was in North Dakota, and then on the way home, my mother would meet the train, and he would come and spend 2 weeks in our house. And we would have a lot of fun with him, even though he was blind. He played the trumpet, I remember. And so and we would take him down the railroad track, and he could walk those rails even though he was blind.
Hmm.
Strange, but he is. And he was a lot of fun.
And how was he related to you?
He was my mother's cousin's boy,
Okay.
so he wasn't really, kind of a cousin. Yeah. Well, his name was Bob Orchard. We had Bob Frank, too. His name was Bob Orchard. And he lived in Devil's Lake, Minnesota, North Dakota. Bob Frank was Aunt Elta's boy. So, and so he lived in Hibbing, of course. So, but we always look forward to Bob coming there.
Yeah. I bet.
Yeah, because he could do so many things that and watching him and take care. He really could do a lot of things for a blind person.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah.
Oh.
And we used to go up to their house sometime in Devil's Lake. So, my mother gave some of the old things from years ago. She gave them to the museum up in that area, North Dakota, Devil's Lake. So.
Do you think the house you grew up in is still standing?
No,
No?
they when they tore the house down, and they put different buildings up there. Well, before I ever moved, a lumber company bought a piece of land and lived next door. So they were on one side of us, and then there was the other side of us, there was a, what do you want to call it, where they made tombstones on the other side of us. So buildings were, and they backed up, they were high, they turned the highway. And then there used to be a road that went across from our place, and it was called 20th Street. That was another one. It got so muddy you couldn't go down it. And that one too, they gravelled and fixed, So the city was. So then my mother sold the house, and I think then time went by, the house was torn down.
Where did she go after she sold the house?
She went into an apartment.
In Grand
In a
Forks?
house, yeah. She went into a house and I rented the bottom part out, and she had an apartment upstairs. Yeah. Well, then she sold that one, and then she moved into just another house, just a house, and upstairs. Yeah. And that house, Roy's oldest boy, Roy, he bought that house. He was, the last time I was ever there, I went to that house where Roy was living. So, yeah. So when Roy was diabetic, really bad, so and then he passed away. He was quite young when he passed away. Yeah, so, yeah. I used to hear from his wife, Louise, for a while, but I don't anymore. So I hear from, at Christmas time I usually hear from, which is Buzz's, one of his boys, Tim. And I hear from Roy's boy, his name was Connie. So and Connie owns a bee business. He and his son. They have 3,000 hives. They sell almost all their honey to Sue Bee.
Okay.
Okay, and it's mostly all clover honey. And they take their bees in the winter down to Texas. And they get their queen bees from California. And one of his One of their cousins owned where he sold queen bees. So, yeah, but he's got a real interesting place.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, well, it's all automatic. They put the honey in, it goes down, it filters out, and then it pours in huge, big vats, huge, goes into those big vats, and then the wax goes into another big things, and most of the wax is sold to the Catholic churches. They make their candles out of beeswax.
Interesting.
Interesting just to see how the mechanism of how the honey is.
That's Buzz's family?
Well, that's Roy's family.
Rose, okay. I was going to say Buzz should have started a
Oh,
bee company.
no, no, he should have. No,
Really? Okay. Huh.
no, that's Roy's family. And Roy, he passed away from lung cancer.
Do you know his son's name?
Connie,
Connie. Is his son?
his sons Connie and Roy, and little Roy. But Roy passed away very young. But Connie's still living.
Is that,
Conrad,
would they be
Conrad. They call it.
Deitzlers?
That would be a Deichler, yes. Conrad, his name is.
Huh.
And his son's name is Conrad. So, and I always hear from them every year. So he's, but then there's, let's see, well, Jack, my brother Jack, I had a brother Jack, and his wife is living in Grand Forks. Her name is Jackie Ann. So last time I used to hear from her, but I don't anymore. So I don't know what's going on with him anymore. Yeah, I hear from Bob's wife off and on. And she always says, "Now we'll see which one of us go first." She always says.
She's having a race.
She said, "Yeah, I hope they let me know when something happens. Your family, I'll have my family let you know when something happens." She was a little older than Bob, and so she's probably maybe 4 years younger than I, So, but she has a housekeeper. Her and housekeeper take care of her, and she lives with her. So.
That's nice.
Yeah. So, actually, her housekeeper is one of her sons were married, and that's the mother of one of her son's wives. That's her housekeeper.
Okay.
She comes there and stays. She's a Spanish woman. So
Interesting. Oh,
yeah.
cool.
But I guess she must like her, and
where's that? Is that in Grand Forks?
no, it's in California.
California.
Yeah.
Do you know where in California?
Yeah. Let me see what's the name of the town. Simi Valley.
Okay.
Simi Valley, California.
Cool.
It's that's where Ronald Reagan was from. That's where the big Ronald Reagan, what do you want to call it, after the president deal, where they always have a big, what do they call it? They have their big museum for each president. Well, that's in Simi Valley
Okay.
for Reagan. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
And where she lives, they have she has like a field and kind of on the edge of Simi Valley. Because they used to have a horse. They had a horse and they had a talking parrot. And she raised Dalmatian dogs. But she doesn't anymore. or the horse. And, you know, Bob used to say he could always, every morning, the horse would whinny and get him up in the morning. But Bob liked to ride, both of them liked to ride horses. So, yeah, so anyway, but her boys didn't ride horses, only Bob and her. She used to ride in all the parades in Grand Forks, she and her family. So, anyway,
Well, thank you for
oh,
taking over.
you're welcome, wasn't
time.
much. So,
I probably wore your voice out.
no, I don't talk enough. I need to talk more.
Well, I should probably head home because I think the kids will be home from school. And
Oh,
I should
yeah.
help Emily with the homework.
Or you help them with, they got to do their homework when they come home. Yeah, that's a good idea. Just let them get that over with and then they have the rest of the day, evening.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we try and make them do their homework before they can do fun things.
yeah. If you can get them.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we usually give them a little break when they get home. And
I
then
guess Abby, she don't like school because she don't like her homework.
No,